Thank you for listening to Depictions Media Radio. Welcome back, everybody. I am here today with author Connie Lockhart Ellefson, and her book, Clear the Spaces, Feel the Rush. Declutter body, mind, and stuff to reclaim energy and freedom and fun. Now, a little bit about Connie. She is an engineer and a professional organizer in Denver, Colorado. Since 2008, she has helped others discover the greater creativity and increased energy that was tied up in unnecessary clutter. And a little bit about the book. Clear the Spaces, Feel the Rush expands far beyond Kondo's work. Author Connie Lockhart Ellefson shows how decluttering can be accomplished not only with our belongings, our stuff, but with our thoughts, emotions, and our bodies as well. So why don't we bring Connie onto the show and let her tell us a little bit more about what this is all about with declutter, how it affects our emotions, how it affects our health, and other aspects of our life. Okay, so we have Connie Ellefson, and I know I just butchered your name pretty bad right there.
That's okay.
Ellefson, Connie
Ellefson,
Ellefson,
yes.
with us today, and she's going to talk about, she's an expert in clutter, shall we say, or decluttering, and her book is about feeling the rush, of course, of decluttering. So, Connie, what does the book really mean to you, and what does the idea of declutter mean to you? What's that strong emotion for you?
It's about letting go of or getting rid of the things that weigh you down. It could be your belongings. That's where most of us start because that's what we see. Mm-hmm. But if, like me, I have to confess I'm an organizing book recovering junkie. I used to buy all the organizing books and get so excited about them and try every new method, and I would always stop at the 90% mark. So eventually I stopped buying the books because I'm like, these don't work. But then I figured out it isn't just about the stuff, it's about the emotions, maybe emotional clutter in me that makes me stop. I'm completely done with the project. And I grew up a very uncluttered home, at least the first 5 or 6 years of my life. My family moved every 6 months to a year. My father worked for an oil business company. And we lived, the first 4 years, we lived in a trailer that was 8 feet wide and 44 feet long. Yeah. So it was 344 square feet for 4 of us. And I remember that it never seemed very cluttered, so I have to assume that we had very few belongings. It was, obviously very compactly designed. But every time we moved, my mom would make us junk out, even if all we really had to do was tape up the drawers and head out. But she'd make us declutter every time. So we were traveling a little lighter, every time we moved, because you're always accumulating stuff. There's people give you gifts or you go shopping or whatever, that's not likely to stop. And it seems like that's kind of a myth with some of the organizing and decluttering methods is they may tell you that this is going to take care of your problem forever. But it's a fluid situation, just like your health is. As I talk about in the book, your physical body, it's always accumulating clutter unless you never, ever, ever eat any junk food or you're always getting just the exercise that your body needs. You're going to be accumulating some clutter in your body. And of course, there's always emotional challenges coming along all the time, or else life would be kind of boring. But that clutter keeps accumulating and you keep having to release that as well. So same thing with belongings. They happen all the time. So it's not a one shot deal. You have to realize there's maintenance in all kinds of decluttering. But the fun part is, as I realized at the end of my book writing process, which took a very long time, that rush of energy and exhilaration that you feel when you declutter a space, you get rid of the stuff that's in your line of sight that kind of just drives you crazy. If it does, some people it doesn't bother. Obviously, that's why people, when they live with someone else, there's always going to be a disparity between what one person can stand and what the other one can stand. Anyway, when you get rid of that, you feel exhilarated, but you also feel exhilarated when you declutter something in your body. As such as if you go for a walk for half an hour or run, you start feeling those endorphins. That's what it is. It's endorphins. It's pain-killing chemicals that come into your body. Your brain releases it. And if you have an emotional release, even if it's something really simple, like you're very upset about something and you have a little cry about it, doesn't even have to be a big cry, just a little cry. And then a few minutes later, you feel better. It's the same thing. It's the same endorphins that are coursing through your body and making you feel a little bit better. So there's more to that story, but you asked about declutter, and that's what it means to me. The other side of it is, like I said, about different people having a different level of declutter tolerance. When I worked with clients in the past, I would show them this beautiful book of different decorating styles, from the severest minimalism to almost Victorian in how crowded it was with decorative objects. But so I didn't want to impose on them my level of declutter when they may prefer to have more beautiful things on display. But if you get rid of the clutter, the stuff that you don't like or use or love, then what's left is the things that you do love, and that's your style. So you don't have to declutter your style, you just have to declutter your clutter in order to feel at home and to enjoy your space.
Yeah, I like how you put it, declutter our clutter. But through a lot of that, what I noticed was it's not the declutter of all my piles of stuff. I'll be honest, I am one of those who organizes myself by way of pile. Oh yeah, there's a pile for this, there's a pile for that.
Yeah.
It drives some
That's
people
okay.
crazy. But when they discover that, it's like he knows exactly where everything is. They're like, oh well, I guess I'll have to deal with some of that. But the one thing that I had trouble with wasn't the physical declutter, it was the emotional declutter. And I noticed that you kept referring back to the emotional declutter. Clearing myself of emotions or feelings that were holding me back or adding weight to my shoulders, right?
Right. So for some people, it may be that they grew up, their family didn't have a lot of money. That was the case when I was younger. It changed as I got older. But so you may hold on to things, obviously, because you feel like if I let go of this thing, I may not ever be able to afford to get it again. And with all this moving that I had in my life, I learned to stop making friends when I moved to a new place because it was so painful to move again and then have to say goodbye to those friends. So
Mm-hmm.
it was kind of an isolating. And then I also, for that reason, I didn't want to ask anybody to help me move, even when I grew up, because I thought of myself as being alone. So that was some emotional clutter for me. Like I had a horror of having too much stuff, not a horror of like I'll never be able to afford it again. But I had this thing like if I have too much stuff, then I won't be able to move myself, and I'm not about to ask anybody to help me. So that was emotional clutter that was tied up with my stuff, and you can imagine how badly I felt if I looked around and saw that there was too much stuff. So that was the kind of stuff I needed to get rid of in my emotions. And everybody has a different story about that.
Yeah.
There might be your parents bought you off with lots of nice toys and treats because they didn't think they could spend time with you. So you may want to hold on to your things because things being loved to you. So everybody has a different thing that's underneath their cluttering instincts.
Yeah. Is it no see the like physical decluttering, that emotional declutter, there's a process that goes along with it, isn't there?
Right. Yeah, it's the easiest way to handle this situation, which most people really dread decluttering. It's a physiological thing in your brain where if you already have something, you already have your little hands on it, your mitts on it, you don't want to let go. And it feels almost I don't remember the part of your brain that's affected, but it feels like a small pain to try to let go of something like a paper cut or a minor burn. So it's really hard to get started. But
Mm-hmm.
once you get started and you start feeling the endorphins of the energy release, that's what the feng shui people talk about. You're releasing that stuck energy. That starts to feel better than the pain of letting go. But what supercharges your efforts is if you can have a big old dream about how you want to spend your time in your space or how you just want to spend your time. And if you're always shuffling your items around at the house or your office or whatever, then you're not going to have time to have adventures or have your friends over anytime they want to stop by or, whatever you love to do that you're not doing now.
Right.
Hold that dream in front of you, and that's much more effective. That's a good way to start motivating yourself to go
Yeah.
towards that dream.
Yeah. Luckily for me, you wrote this particular book, and it's on Kindle. So I have the Kindle version here, and you have a in the introduction, and I really didn't get much past the introduction, but that's okay because in there you have declutter to create your dream life,
Right.
and um, I thought that would be a really important process, and
Mhm.
you're already sitting here talking about it when I asked about the process, that dream that you have for your life and for your space, right?
Uh-huh.
So
Yeah, I had some examples in there. You might have seen them,
yeah.
and it was maybe you just want to spend the time with your family or whoever you live with,
Mm-hmm.
having going out and hiking or having adventures or parasailing or whatever the heck, float your boat. Then you're gonna keep things pretty pared down at your house because you don't want anything to stand in your way of getting out and having adventures. Or you
Mm-hmm.
may want to spend time with kids playing games in the board games or whatever in the family room. So you'll focus more on making a cozy space at home and making one that's really convenient for having fun. I did have one really cool family client that they love to go skiing and they love to go camping. So they had this huge shelf in their garage that was completely dedicated to only that gear that went for their adventures. They didn't have anything else on those shelves. So whenever they were ready to go skiing, they just pulled everything off the shelf and away they went. and they weren't stuck with looking over and saying, oh, the gardening, I forgot, I probably should be working in the garden today. They just had it completely, streamlined. So that's an exciting way to do it. Or maybe you want to travel, or maybe you want to do some particular crafts or whatever. So some of those take space. And if you dedicate a space to it or plan for it, get it all set up, then you're much more likely to spend a little time with it every day or every week at least, doing the stuff you love to do. So that's a dream. The dream is really how you spend your time.
Yeah. So if you dedication is what I'm hearing. It's like you dedicated the space towards it. So now you'll dedicate the time towards it, and then you'll meet and find that dream through all that dedication that you set up.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Yep. Part of it is you have to give yourself permission to go ahead and do those things once you free up some space. I don't think we talked about it before, but it's been estimated that we spend an average of 55 minutes a day looking for stuff that we can't find, or thinking about, I need to find so-and-so, but I don't know where it is, so I'll just put it aside for the moment. And then a minute later, you're like, I need to find so-and-so, but I don't know where it is, so I'll just wait. So all that time amounts to 6 hours a week. And if everything were organized to the point where you didn't have to move more than one thing to find another thing, and you knew exactly where everything was, that's kind of a basic definition of being extremely organized. Yeah. Then you could theoretically free up 6 hours a week. And there's lots of stuff you could do in 6 hours, especially if it were all at once. But even an hour a day, you could do a lot to build towards your dream too.
Yeah, 6 hours a day. I could write a list of things that I could do in 6 hours. Did include like things like cleaning or shopping, right?
Right.
Did actually added more time with me holding a camera in my hand. Actually, one of my passions in arts.
Oh, nice.
So, I'm so focused on your introduction because you explained the rush feeling with the endorphins, because you have in there feeling the rush. It's like, and then the dream. It's amazing how if we just dedicate the shelf, the space, and the organizing, so we don't have to spend 6 hours looking for something. I know I narrowed that down a little further than what you actually explained, but but it's kind of interesting how we it's a bad way to put it, but we lose time because of stuff.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
So
yeah, it's huge, and it bothers some people a lot more than others. There was one of the studies I mentioned in the book is from UCLA, and they said that older teenagers and men seem to be much more relaxed about having stuff in their visual field that doesn't bother them, and I think that's because men normally have a better ability to just focus in on something.
We have time.
Whereas women are taking in information from all different sources all the time. So they're the ones that are really bothered by a cluttered area. But you touched on one thing when you talked about the rush, and that's the second part of the book. And I think I told you if you read the introduction and then the last chapter, you'd get the main point about the rush. Yeah. And even if you don't want to declutter, it's worth reading those two sections just for that info. When I started putting things together and having all these aha moments at the end of my writing process, I remembered reading this book called Becoming Supernatural by Dr. Joe Dispenza, and he described a 4-day seminar where he asked the participants to spend 10 minutes 3 times a day, putting themselves in a high vibrational emotional state, like happiness, love, gratitude,
Yeah.
appreciation,
Hmm.
whatever. And then at beginning and end of those 4 days, they had a cheek swab to check for their immunoglobulin A levels, which is a protein in your body that says this is how strong your immune system is right now. And after the 4 days of spending basically 30 minutes a day being happy, their immunoglobulin A was up an average of 50%. And he said, this is from 30 minutes a day of being happy for 4 days. This is crazy. And it's way more powerful than any flu shot or vitamin C or something else you might take from the outside to improve your immune system. And it's all inside you and it's under your control. That's what I learned. Uh, he had several meditations in the book, and from one of them I practiced turning on my own endorphins anytime. And that was further, I put all these things together. I had this yoga class where we were lying down under the trees on the lawn outside my athletic club. We had to kind of, during the we had to stay apart from each other. So we were outside, and at the very end of every yoga class, you lie down on your back and you relaxed everything. And so I'm looking up through the leaves of this beautiful tree. The leaves are just gorgeous leaves, and the sunlight's coming through them. And the woman had a beautiful, soft, soothing voice, and the,
Go ahead.
the music was very, very soothing. So I'm like, oh, this feels so good. I just got endorphins, all over the place. And then all of a sudden I went, wait a minute. It's not the music. It's not the leaves. It's not the shavasana. It's all coming from within me. And it's under my control. I can turn it on anytime.
Yeah.
So even if you haven't learned the particular meditation, you can think about how you feel. If you think about some hands on you, even if it's not about to have a good feeling and how good it is, or you're just about to take a bite of your favorite food and you love that feeling. So there's all kinds of exciting, wonderful feelings that stir up a little bit of endorphins in your body. And so once you get in the habit of that, being happy, you don't even have to declutter, to tell you the truth. You can just be happy. And don't tell anybody, though. Decluttering is a great tool to help you stir up those endorphins, because you do feel that rush no matter what you declutter. But yeah, just learning how to turn it on, you can improve your health, your immune system any old time. So that's the rush. And it's beyond the rush, even the rush of decluttering. So
Yeah.
it's pretty exciting.
I think you just solved everybody's emotional problem in just a few sentences there.
Yeah.
Okay, then now, how do we put it into action, right? You mentioned a couple things that actually cause massive endorphins for me. And
Mhm.
one, you mentioned food. I love food, and
That's good.
I had the midsection to prove it too. As somebody once said, if you can't poke fun at yourself, then what's the point, right?
Right.
The other thing was the trees. I had an opportunity one time to lay in the middle of an old growth forest and just look up, and I think it was the best 20 to 40 minutes of my life, just laying there knowing that, wow, this is amazing. That I'm looking back. I'm also looking back through time, and all these amazing things just happening all at once because I'm in a ancient forest.
Uh-huh.
I was like,
Yeah.
so
Trees are pretty magical.
yeah. So, um, it when we got to that forest, we had just hiked. I think it was something like 15 to 20 kilometers too. So
Wow.
my
Oh
body
gosh.
was ready for a rest also,
Yeah.
and it's like,
Uh-huh.
and the endorphins, it just washed over your body, and it was like, yeah. And
Right.
and also what you said was, what in that was, that memory of it re-triggers those emotions and those endorphins, right?
Exactly.
So
Yeah.
we can keep finding it again and again, right?
Right.
So,
Yes,
and I think that
exactly. And
was
I,
also somewhere
one
in
of
your
the
book
things,
too. I think that
no, go
idea was
ahead.
also that idea of being able to revisit it time and again was also in your book. I think in the part 5, the last part of your book.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, if you especially love an organized space, then every time you look around, it's going to give you a little thrill,
Yeah.
especially if it's been a wreck for a while. And the weirdest thing about decluttering or organizing is you think it's going to take forever. And I have a funny story to tell on myself about that. I had this closet in my, I've got a tri-level house, so on the upper level I've got my office and my bedroom, and then there's a hall closet that's got some different things in it. Normally it'd be a linen closet, but I keep lots of different stuff in it. But it was really organized for a while, and then I got really busy with trying to wrap up the book and do a lot of my engineering work too, and it just became a jumble. And I left it that way for almost a year because I just kept thinking it's going to take way too long. I don't want to start the project and then not be able to finish it. So I just put it off and put it off. But then finally I thought, okay, I've got the book in now. I'm gonna treat myself by going ahead and decluttering that closet and organizing it. It took an hour and 20 minutes. I'm like, are you kidding me? Do you know how many times in the past year I've watched an hour and a half movie at the end of the week to relax or whatever? And I could have had this closet cleaned a year ago in the same amount of time. So we think it's going to take forever, but it doesn't. And you mentioned a couple of things. One of the key things I do is there's a meditation I describe in the emotional chapter. It's called the 10-minute do nothing meditation, where you just sit there looking out the window or looking at something. I try to look at something beautiful or pretty. You don't pray or plan or meditate or think or anything. You just sit there and get bored with yourself. And the most interesting thoughts come into your head. And
Yeah.
sometimes it's just, oh, I need to remember to do that thing that you might have forgotten. Or it's some amazing insight. It's basically your higher self can talk to you because you're not yakking and at it in your brain. You're just kind of sitting there. So that's where I got some wonderful things, including one place I was sitting that wasn't that beautiful, except I looked up. I was in front of an office building looking, and I looked up at this tree, and it was kind of waving. The leaves were waving down, up and down a little bit, and a little bit of wind. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this tree is a work of art. And every single tree in the whole planet is a work of art, even if it's scraggly. They're all just amazing, and there's millions of them, and they're basically free to us. So there's abundance that you can contemplate and feel grateful for. And then I write down 5 things every day that I'm grateful for, and 5 things that I accomplished, or I'm giving myself a pat on the back for doing it. I call it props. Anyway, 5 of those, and then five gratitudes every day. So that helps you remember all the good things in your day that actually happened. That you're going to forget it the next day. So keep track of it, and it keeps you in gratitude mode.
Yeah. So, I, I've heard about other coaches have called it journaling and things like that. And
Uh-huh.
but a lot of very successful people talk about how they write down at least a few things that they were grateful for that day, and a few things that, hey, I did that well today.
Uh-huh.
And Um, does that help keep us focused on our goals and on the happy things in our life?
Right. Yeah, it's staggering how many big and tiny things that, like even huge accomplishments, we tend to forget within a few days. You know, big goals that we finally achieved, we tend to get caught up in what's happening now. And that, to some extent, that's human nature because we're hardwired to look out for trouble and see what's not going right today because it might mean danger, even if there's really very little chance that it's, you're in immediate physical danger. But we I think you might have read in my book, my first tip is first declutter the guilts. Don't
Yes.
feel bad that your house is a wreck or whatever, or you've done all these things. Oh no, you've forgotten your accomplishments. So none of this is to feel guilty about. It's all just suggestions for ways to make life more enjoyable and get the most enjoyment out of each day. But yeah, it's kind of fun to read back through the journals. And I tend to circle or star the ones that I really want to remember. So if I go back through several pages and I just look through at the stars, then I remembered the most interesting or fun part of the day.
Yeah. How
And
enjoyable?
it,
Yeah. How
it
enjoyable is Connie's life?
pardon me.
How enjoyable is Connie's life?
It's pretty enjoyable, even though I'm still doing the work that I never really liked that much. The engineering work, I'm still doing it, but uh, I work at home on my own schedule, and that turned out to be one of the biggest turning points in my life. For some people, they may love the structure. For me, I don't like going to a certain place at a certain time, sitting in front of a certain computer for a certain number of hours. I pretty much hate that. So if I can work at 6 in the morning, this morning I woke up at 4:30 and I worked half an hour, and then I took a little snooze, and then I worked out at my athletic club. So every single day of my life is different, and there's some things that are threads through it.
Yeah.
But every day is a little bit different, and for me, that's Candyland.
Yeah. But, hey, for an engineer, that's tough to find differences in every day. You were we didn't actually mention it, but civil engineering, right?
Yes.
Yeah,
Uh-huh.
yeah, yeah. Because I remember when we first met, we were laughing about you're the civil engineer and I'm the former chemical engineer and
Uh-huh.
analytical chemist. It's like, yeah, you sat there for and sometimes you come up with these challenges. Somebody hits you with a challenge that you're like, oh my god, now I actually get to use my brain. And then for the most part, you're just sitting there like, yeah, I am just some little lab rat running around in a maze. It's not as glamorous as people think.
No,
But
it's not
um,
even remotely glamorous. It's just fun to be able to say you're an engineer. That's kind
yeah,
of why I went into it.
yeah. Um, Yeah, I, I think that was to say I was an engineer was probably the best part of the whole thing. Um,
Mhm.
but it was all the other the things like your book. It's like it and so it's very well organized, and when we actually start reading it becomes like, oh hey, she's decluttering her brain a little bit here too. And it made it fun. So it in decluttering can be fun, right?
Right, exactly.
So
That's what I tried to convey and put in enough humor so you could definitely see we're all in it together, including me,
yeah.
and try to make it appealing for that reason. I have this, another confession. I have this thing that I pulled out of a calendar that I got a long time ago. You know how some calendars have pages where they say lists, these are the goals you want to work on, or
Yeah.
list your, these are my commitments for physical working out or whatever this year. So one of them is goals to sabotage. And I have that. It cracks me up every time I see that. So I have it in front of my computer. And for me, something that makes you laugh is extremely valuable because it gets you out of that mode of panic and fear. And we're all a lot more creative and basically more intelligent when we're relaxed and happy. So I just thought of that. I need to add another chapter. Put it in a blog post. So that's another good reason to declutter and declutter your seriousness too, because it does get in the way.
Well, my niece, she's going to art school, and she's very talented. And I said to her, "It's like, remember, don't take yourself too damn seriously. That you don't relax in what you're doing." Like, and
good.
She was like, "Oh, I can't." Well, she's a person that suffers from clinical anxieties, and it's something that she just doesn't think that she can relax, and relaxing and work don't go together, and relaxing and performing her art don't go together. And it's like, no, add relax in there. Make sure you put it in there. And,
right.
Yeah.
Well, if she can learn, I mentioned in my book a couple of times, I made a big point of it. If she can learn how to do tapping, emotional freedom technique.
Yes.
It's a extremely effective mind-body technique, and it's very physical. So there's nothing woo-woo about it. It's extremely well researched and documented kind of after the fact, after a bunch of people found out how effective it was. But tapping is awesome, and it's something you can do on your own anytime. You can learn to do it. There's a website that I mentioned in the book called thetappingsolution.com, and there's a lot of, and there's also lots of stuff on YouTube, but it's really quick and really easy and feels good. You get endorphins just from that too.
Yeah. I really like endorphins.
Yeah, me too. I'm like, endorphins, yeah, they're.
As I can say, you can't really say happy drugs. I guess it's happy hormones.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because it's not outside; it's inside our bodies, right?
Yes, and it's. I don't know if it's a hormone. I think it's a neurotransmitter. Yeah. But it's whatever it is. It's chemical.
Yeah.
And you can pull it up anytime. One week I decided to do an experiment. I'm going to have the endorphins on all the time, and I went this whole week, and I'm just kind of like, man, this feels really good. I'm not used to this. This feeling good stuff all the time. But I did notice sometimes I'd fall off the wagon, but it was pretty easy to get back on. And then a lot of things didn't bother me nearly as much as they would have if I'd been all serious all the time, or even most of the time. And it's kind of a choice we can make any second of the day. We can choose to, I go to some of my exercise classes, and some of them are more vigorous than others. And I'm focused, I'm concentrating to do the right move, the right push-up or whatever, and I'm like, wait, you could be enjoying this. You could be smiling and endorphing right now if you wanted to.
Yeah. So, when you started writing the book, was the goal for the reader the same as when you got to the end of writing the book?
No, it wasn't. Like, I even had a different title when I started, a different subtitle. Earlier it was Declutter and Organize Body, Mind, and Stuff. and the real you shines through, which is still true. Like, you get rid of all your crap, so to speak, and what's left is you without things hanging on you emotionally or your belongings or whatever. But then when I realized what the rush could do for you, then I changed the subtitle to talk about it's now energy freedom, to reclaim energy, freedom, and fun. Because the energy that is released when you declutter is staggering. And it feels good, and it also allows you to accomplish more of what you might like to accomplish. Mm-hmm. So it's big, man.
Yeah.
Very big.
I like both titles because I can think of some things that go with the first title. When just basic theories of life. When we actually strip ourselves of all the stuff and everything, do you believe that we're all, when we strip all that stuff, that we're all beautiful?
Yes. We're beautiful even with the stuff, but it's hard to see ourselves that way.
Yeah.
And it's hard for other people to see us in there. Behind, it's kind of like a smoke screen that we put up. It's a way of hiding ourselves, hiding our glory from other people, mm-hmm. and from ourselves. So it really is a way to release all the wonder that is each person.
Pretty cool.
Good point.
Was there an ultimate goal for after you read the whole entire book? Was there like an ultimate thing that you wanted people to get out of it?
Well, those two things that we've just talked about, mm-hmm. The rush is like, it's super practical, especially if people are worried about their health, as they have been for the last 4 years. But basically, I wanted to make it fun and make it a well-rounded description, not just your belongings. Yeah. That's kind of the tip of the iceberg. The belongings, we see them, but the stuff, the emotion that's underneath in the water is much bigger. But if anybody gets anything out of it, it's declutter the guilts and start each day is new. This comes up a lot in religion. It's a blank slate. God's willing to write a new story on your slate every day, and you can do the same for yourself. You can put the past behind you because you can't do anything about it now, and all the mistakes that you think you've made in the past, putting all that behind you, that's clutter too. So, and there's people that go through 50, 60, 70, 80 years and they're still being held back by emotional trauma that happened when they were tiny kids. And some of them that I know personally are just such amazing human beings, but they're always, they just keep themselves repressed because they won't let go of that old memory and that old trauma, or they won't do something to process it and believe that they can let it go.
Yeah.
So it all works together.
Yeah. And
it's some fun options. It's not a, you should do this.
Absolutely.
Free will.
Yeah, I actually really enjoyed the book, and
thank you.
Yeah, I like I said, I thought it was well organized and everything. So, what are the best places to actually go buy your book?
Well, it's available on Amazon, of course. That's where I started with the ebook, but now it's available as paperback and hardback. And I noticed the other day Barnes & Noble has it on their website. And if you ask for it in your local independent bookstore, they can get it in as well. So there's a distributor that all the independent bookstores use to do the print on demand. Mm-hmm. So you can get it just about anywhere.
Awesome.
And also, you can check on my website, which is clearthespace.com. That's CLEARTHESPACE.com. And if you'd like an autographed copy, you can order it through that website, and then I'll send you an autographed copy.
Awesome. Autograph copies are wonderful.
Yeah.
So, well, thank you for joining us today. And I know we just sucked an hour out of your wonderful day.
Oh. No, I love talking about it, so it's great.
Yeah. So, and thank you everybody for listening. And go get your book. Like I said earlier, of course we got our version of it on Kindle, and go check out the bookstores. They're wonderful resources and a great place to find things that we love to read. So, yeah. Thank you again, Connie.
Thank you so much, Michael, for having me on.
This show has been produced by Depictions Media. Please contact us at depictions.media for more information.